priest just sat there, eyes old and heavy with years of junk on the doctor's face. "I can't write you a prescription." The doctor jerked open a drawer and slid an ampule across the table. "That's all I have in the office." The doctor stood up. "Take it and get out!"
Alright, so this pleasant evening, Roberto and I, Corbin, are covering Exterminator! Exclamation point.
Exclamation. Yeah.
It's a collection of short stories by William Burroughs, beat author most famous for Naked Lunch and other cut-up technique novels. I'm not sure if this one is cut up.
Oh yeah, I forgot to go back and confirm. It's not brought up in the canon of his cut up works.
Oh, but it feels like it needs to be. Frankly, I can't find too much online about this specific work.
Right, yeah.
It was a little niche, even amongst canon of Burroughs works.
Yeah, even though okay, so I think you have a little bit more Burroughs experience than I do. Reading this book was such a breeze. I did have to reread some sections a few times, okay, what? But it is immediately such a charming and delightful book. Weird to say for how aggressively gross it is too, but
it's punchy. It's punchy for sure, but that's how Burroughs writes. I haven't read Burroughs in a long time after dropping Get Lunch. It's a little less cozy than this one. So for listeners, if you ever want to get into Burroughs, don't quite know how to, or you want to get into some crazy gross stuff, you don't want to hit the deep end right away, Exterminator might be for you. Frankly, I don't know. I think Exterminator it stands on its own legs, even outside of the cut up canon or discography.
Right, the stuff that's reminiscent of there's something I remember reading here that inspires that phrase, cut up, that makes me think, oh, this was something that was written one way, chopped up, and then pasted together in a different order. I don't know, because it's weirdly lucid. There's a constant shifting of time and of perspective. There are phrases that repeat, but each of these things feel deployed. The one story that felt really cut up. I'm not. I feel like there should be an adjective for this. The one story that felt really cut up for me was The Teacher. The one that's about I don't know if he's a mob hitman or something, who someone gets to jump on him and he's in his deathbed. And then the story's this swirl of memories as the detectives are trying to get a confession out of him before he dies. And you get these glimpses of unrelated things, like a teacher that's calling out his name, memories of him preparing. It's a little tough to follow, but I could believe that maybe, he wrote it one way and then found a way to chop it up. In some ways, that seems easier than to have to imagine what that stream of memories would go and, type it up right through. But even then, that sort of mosaic, is contextualized by what the story is, someone's dying memories.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Honestly, so playing cut-up method for a deathbed scene like that would be more coherent than trying to imagine and then type it up on a typeboard.
Right. There are some moments where I could believe it coming, just like that. There's those phrases that get repeated, the one about it's one of the last stories, but I was then I went back to read it again. The the story about the guy that's in Mexico and he's like he writes something in a notebook.
Oh,
There's gonna be a lot of this for this story.
that's fine.
For this book, I mean.
I'm trying my best to recall. I thought you were going to do a comparison of George Trip Home and Reddy's.
Oh.
The one with the biologic show.
Oh, yeah. Right, the story just like straight up comes back.
There was one that came in the beginning, and then there was another one at the end again.
Right, and sometimes you get like the phrases with a little bit more context. So there's some definite like playing around like of like phrases that are sitting there like and we made this comparison to film form just chatting about the book in the past, but it feels like have these clips like in your arsenal like while you're editing a music video, like in your media folder. And it's something you can like pull out like when like these phrases that come back, like the cold marbles line, it's in that like kind of the cold lost marbles that's like in that poem at the end.
Yeah.
But it shows up in the earlier stories. And yeah, and the one at the biologic show, like the phrase like come and jack off, like that comes back later with more detail.
Flopping around, shitting and pissing. That was repeat one. That is my favorite lineage. It doesn't just repeat in Exterminator. It comes back in Express and Naked Lunch. Like that phrasing is absolutely amazing. Right, so that's beautiful. Like William Burroughs just believes in like there's just something primal about the imagery of shitting and pissing. Yeah, there is. It's part of the show. Right, like he understands some words that have power. Like the biologic show. What a great name for something. Right, I think I read on Wikipedia it was like reused for an Al Columbia comic at one point. And then when the story comes back in Reddy's, the story comes back, they say you got to pay the biologic price. It's really clever. It's really good. I pay the biologic price. It's so cool how like these sort of apocalyptic visions sort of fade in and out of each other. Yeah. It like I made a comparison to Super Jail. Think about else. Maybe like Midnight Gospel or another one. Oh, Space Dandy. Oh yeah. Where the main character is just apocalyptically die at the end, and then they come back next episode. Those are good comparisons. Like the glue of those shows, like each like episode is kind of like this its own standalone fiasco, but you get to like experience that over and over again or see it at a kind of distance because like your perspective is someone who keeps visiting all these different ones. Yeah. It's cool though because they're like unified by theme or like vision still. Yeah, and like sometimes I feel like in the story that's overall like more of a little joke. The like right after Purple Better one, the what Washington, what orders? Yeah, like it's like these CIA people like talking about the importance of propping up the monarchy and their sort of plans for the Gladio-like control of the world. And they talk about like unleashing the word virus, which I'm sure we're gonna talk more about that. Like I'm sorry that this is gonna be the the loosest episode of all time of anything. That word virus, B23, that comes back in multiple stories. Yeah, like Johnny 23 or the number 23 itself. But then I believe because there's multiple stories where it seems like some kind of like breakdown of society is already happening before the story starts. Like some of the stories are anticipating a collapse, and other stories are like in the middle of it. They look outside and there's people running around the streets. The youth have gone wild. Oh yeah, this Giant 23 is one of those that starts just in the middle of things. Right, and that's like that's a standalone apocalypse, right? That seems to be one person, but it's also that's a virus again. He himself released good old Dr. Finally.
Yeah, that story was chilling. Because I think that was the first story where there was like an explicit villain, and it explored to like put you in the mindset of this specific kind of like villainous person. The stories before felt like a sort of like a fun like carnival of debauchery.
This one, 923 felt more willed.
Yeah.
It continued on, like Perfect Servant was another one. They had like a villain.
Yeah, that one was funny.
That was funny.
No, it's also interesting too. Is like I guess it shows like how plugged in. I think like William Burroughs is like one of those people. Like I guess like weirdly enough, like in a more sober way than Philip K. Dick. Like saw the seams of society. But that one relies on like some like government like MK Ultra type schemes, like backfiring on them. But I was looking into it. Turns out like MK Ultra didn't become public knowledge until later in the 70s. This came out in 1973, and MK Ultra didn't get leaked until like 76 or something.
So he
I guess
had
if
his
you're
finger on pulse then. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm sure like he's the kind of guy whose friendships might have been some of the people that were tested on for MK Ultra. Like if you live in San Francisco, there's a chance that you go into like some test because they say like, you know, like you need a little bit of money, and they're like, here, do this for, you know, give you $1,000, and you drink some water, and you know it's laced with LSD, and you have this experience, you have no idea what's happening, and no one will believe you. Right. So that one, I guess we can just tell this one. This is a very short story, just for the audience, because like if you haven't read Exterminator, I'm sure you're like adrift right now. Yeah, so like the scientists are the government's working on some like a mind control thing for the sake of perfectly obedient citizenship. You know, supposedly to protect freedom, to protect America from communists. They have to control everyone, not to think that way. And they found a virus that'll make people perfectly obedient, and like their host, like whatever, like their patient zero for that is this butler who's the perfect servant, who's perfectly compliant and everything. But then like as soon as like once it's released, they find out too late. It's not working the same way. What happens? Everyone starts dying, or
everyone starts dying by their own hands.
Oh yeah, the sneezing. Right, but he's perfectly in control. He reveals that good old Bentley was actually the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu.
It was a great Oh.
Like I was thinking, maybe it'd be like super awkward, and like maybe we need like a scholar to walk us through it. But it'd be funny to read one of those old Fu Manchu stories.
Yeah.
But that's so funny, like this like super like Yellow Peril like like cartoon villain.
Never comes back again, I don't think. Not a repeat character.
No, not a repeat. He just comes in and spreads a deadly virus and pieces out. But it's such a great like reversal of the sort of like of Cold War paranoia. Like it's so silly if you find that actually comes true, and that you were playing into it the whole time. And that reminds me of there's a lot of like, I think like one of the main themes in this book that keeps coming back is sort of the absurdity of government attempts at control, but also the complete like success of their domination. Or I don't know. It's like an anti-cop thing where the cops look incompetent and yet super powerful.
Yeah. So I definitely agree that control is probably the biggest theme there is. It is funny that these people are ultimately incompetent. The control is definitely like complete and total because of, I mean, not the individuals themselves, but just the systems involved that privilege them.
Yeah, it's so interesting to like sometimes you focus on like the people that you think they have like their finger on the pulse, like in the story. I didn't have a list with me. The one about the Scientology one.
Ellie Smile.
Ellie's Smile. Right, like that guy's explicitly looking up, is specifically researching methods of control or something. But he's such a funny character that's sort of like buttoned up, like like the old version of like a noble savant, like one of those aristocratic Renaissance people who just master every science.
Renaissance man. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he invents a pill that works on that counteracts the Scientologist E-meter, so you can have some guy infiltrate them, and then it turns out that the pill gives you diarrhea. and in the end, like it's not even Scientology that gets him. Scientology is shown as like this other thing of like this way of like giving yourself confidence, a way you can upstat yourself. And they're like, and they're done in by first like a guy that's being like controlled, who's got who's got this guy I don't know, going on a kung fu rampage on a no, what is it? Oh man, that's like kind of complicated. There's like layers of that story.
Yeah, they're like what conflict between
like a street
hippies
brawl
and cops or something.
Right, or yeah, and that one is right. There's that layer. There's the hippies and the cops that are fighting. There's the Sea Org. There's this character who's like Ali's like caretaker.
Is it Clinch?
Clinch, yeah. There's that. He's fighting like these. He's there. He's fighting like with like some. I forgot why he starts fighting. Actually, is he fighting the same people? Because there's a backstory. Because Ali was this guy who has this condition where that makes him like have to like mimic other people.
Yeah.
So we're getting kind of in the weeds. But it doesn't matter. Like, this Clint. Ali dies. When Clint goes out to market, he gets into a fight. He kills the Lord
Westfield.
There's a huge brawl where some hippies fight back and some cower because there's a bunch of like police thugs fighting them too in this square, and then a landslide comes and buries them all.
Against the icy blackness of space, the ghost face of Ali smiles.
What a lovely button on it. Because the whole time, the story is kind of framed, and this is a cool thing that, that's why I'm okay just repeating the film form thing over and over again. William Burroughs' narration uses, like, instead of just narrating imagery and events, he says camera zooms in, camera cuts to, camera sees.
Film concern stops here.
It's really interesting because it's a way to contextualize these abrupt transitions. Because sometimes it's in the realm of memory. Like even this story has that thing where Clint is watching TV and then he remembers the time that Ali went out and died. And it doesn't tell you that it's a flashback. It just cuts. Like how a movie would cut.
And we buy it just about as easily.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool. It makes it for like a really snappy thing. Although I do admit I had to, like, obviously just now I'm trying to recall the story. I got a little turned around. But I'd have to like read that one over a few times.
It's not the smoothest of writing to go through.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there was some cut up happening, but it was like a paragraph at a time. But the flow seems right too, in a way.
So punchy.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really punchy. I like it for that.
I know there's more to talk about with the control stuff. There's actually a really great line in the Purple Better one about control. But if you want to like talk about the film aspects, because that becomes like a wrap around it all. Like there's a great speech at the end, in the story, the end about
Film.
Yeah, about film or about this. It's a sort of metaphor, but like I guess more direct.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's what a little like director there giving what the bartender life advice, not life advice, but like advice for escape for something better.
Right, because he's like because the bartender turned out to be an alien, and he's just like a small part of it, of the alien
that
project.
was the end though. That was Astronaut's Return.
No, the Astronaut's Return is the one. I really liked that story. If you want to talk about it for a minute, I like the story part of it. I think it has the same problem as the Purple Better one, where it becomes a sort of essay for a little while. That's the one about the kid who starts flying.
Yeah.
And then he goes to shave in his childhood house. It's like a metaphor. It writes itself. That's like in the beginning portion of the book. That there's a flow. This is before like it really goes into. I guess it is like it's got an essay, but this is before it goes into before it settles into this pattern of stories of cops and apocalypses.
Right. Yeah, it was a super early one. I do like some of the essay takes on it, though. According to ancient legend, their white race results from a nuclear explosion in what is now the Gobi Desert some 30,000 years ago.
Yeah, I guess that there is some apocalypse there too, just ancient apocalypse. And that's like the Nation of Islam say that white people are created in a lab by this devil called Yaqub.
I like that take. I don't think they actually happened, but to have a position like that is super. I want to say healthy, but it's necessary.
Yeah, and there's a truth behind the truth there. Not to. I mean, that's the most obvious thing, and in a way, I don't want to sound like condescending, paternalistic, in how I say it, but like race is a construct, is a pseudo-scientific thing, so it being from a scientist makes sense in a way.
Yeah.
A nuclear explosion too is it's that vision of apocalypse that isn't fire and brimstone raining down. It's not a biblical plague. It's a man-made thing. Like even the viruses,
man-made things.
Like man-made things, and like within the story, and of course coronavirus, a pandemic, etc. etc.
That was all because of human behaviors, though.
That's true. In some way, yeah, it's true. We've gotten so big. Global warming. Oh wait, is that crazy in the end too? Like it turns out like part of the aliens' plan is to have more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
1973. I guess we've been knowing about it. Like I know that goes back, but it's crazy that he found the right one.
I don't know if this was that era when they first were finding out about it, but I'm pretty sure for a while, at the 50s and 60s, they were concerned about like a second ice age.
Yeah, because there was a cold snap in the 70s that made people think there'd be another little ice age. That's because there have been like those kinds of periods in the past. There was a little ice age in the Middle Ages.
I thought that was because like a volcano erupting though.
There's a volcanic. Yeah, but there's also another one. This is a kind of a crazy thing. Speaking of like man-made things, I'm not sure how well backed up this is. This is third hand. I saw it in a YouTube video, but in North Central America, the native people there they didn't they didn't have like plantations exactly. Or that wasn't like their main, or that wasn't their only way of agriculture. They had like these sort of controlled forests where, they had like Three Sisters style of growing plants where just like this tree next to that type of tree would help keep away certain pests and grow this. And like, so it's not like they had plantations, they just had forests that they managed.
It's like a planned forestry.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And then when European settlers came and, you led to a huge, mass death event, the forests weren't tended to in the same way, and a lot of the forests grew back. And they absorbed so much carbon that it actually did drop the global temperatures in the world. And that led to a huge constriction of agriculture in Europe. And that led to one of the little ice ages.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. If true.
True, a little bit of payback for the mutated nuclear blasted whites.
Yeah.
That's crazy if true.
So there have been these little historical, but that's one that is, without our knowledge, influenced by
behaviors,
by people. I
mean, we're such a part of it that we're so ingrained within that system. There's so many repercussions or like little waves in the pond when you throw a pebble. And
it's so much more, I wish Fu Manchu would show up and be like, "Oh, it was me all along." But these things are so much more chaotic. Where we're going at. But I think that an interesting character or sets of characters, I don't know, like this Matryoshka doll construct is in the story Win Die, You Die, We Die.
Yeah.
Did I get that order right?
Win Die, We Die, You Die. It was a crazy read. I thought that, I'm going to end up in the story now.
Yeah. Yeah, I did have the same thought, even just reading it. Like, we were, there's a great place to talk about the metafiction, the fictions in, I think a constant that might come up a lot as we go in this book club is I really liked The King in Yellow, like the idea that that this book could unleash things. Could get inside your brain and change you. This felt like a story kind of about that. And we're just reading the book too. This one, if there was a book to make you crazy, it'd be this one.
If it went a little bit longer, maybe, yeah.
But this Wind Die that one is so delirious, and that the story kept being this horrible thing is happening. Cut to, Mr. Anderson can see you now, and it was someone who was reading a story about that. And then they go up and they start sharing this other cataclysm that's going to happen. So it's just these nested calamities that don't pay off. They just kind of build.
So with music terms like crescendos, and then it chills out and rests for a bit. It crescendos again.
Yeah, it's interesting because if I zoom in on any of these particular fictions, it's so interesting that while this is happening, the narrator's while this apocalypse is happening, so the first what is it? I don't get I guess it doesn't matter what the order is exactly.
Kind of matters. So the first one
is the wind dying.
Puerto de los Santos.
Right. And just by some luck of geography, there's a wind current that keeps out stagnation and pestilence.
The bugs.
Yeah, mosquitoes and swamp. But then it turned out that was a story, and someone's reading it. They read the next story, and it's these scorpion-tailed women with the crawling breasts.
About to what? To take over this like small town.
Like just when things are about to get good in that story, it cuts to this old guy who's wants to have a meeting with someone important. And in style, this narrator is very similar to the one from the first story within the story. Because the first guy's like, actually, I wrote a thesis about the wind dying. And then it's like a similar guy who's like, I have a thesis about
virus replication outside the host cell. Trees is theoretical, of course. I've not come here to discuss theories, Mr. Anderson. I've come to warn you that virus replication outside the host cell is now an accomplished fact.
Like, that's so interesting, because I think that gets at, like, this tension that's happening in this story, and maybe throughout the book, is, like, that line between fiction and reality being super permeable. Is it in Short Trip Home or in The Lemon Kid? One of these, they both come back in Ready, so I feel like it's, like, one world, but it's, like, one where, like, I don't know, like, these boys are fucking and turning into werewolves or turning into foxes, but it starts as someone writing an autobiography as a fiction of animals, and then from the story, one of the characters in that comes back on a stage, like doing a show, and then that kind of spreads. Like, he starts doing a lemon mouth at everyone. If he sucks a lemon at you or something, then I don't know, that changes you in some way, but that's outside of this line between fiction and reality being permeable. Like, that's one way it comes back. It is introduced earlier. Yeah, but this virus replication thing, then it cuts away, like, before I even know, like, what the full extent of what this virus problem is, and it's someone else who is reading a story, and they all have different thoughts. They all go like, oh, what an interesting story. I want to see how that ends, but I have to deal with this thing. And then the last one, the narrator is so, like, he speaks in such a weird way. Like, that guy sounds like ChatGPT.
Yeah, a little bit. Robotic. LGBT is fascinating, though. What a crazy fucking thing. I
think that ChatGPT is an interesting thing to be in conversation with Burroughs. Isn't like the way ChatGPT works? Isn't that like cut up in a way? It's like a dark mirror to it, because like it just like has a bank of phrases, and it mixes them up just in like based on its sampling of how certain types of questions or statements are responded to, and rejumbles those words. So it is
a scary dark mirror, though. It's a weird reversal, though.
Yeah, because instead of like the part of the cut up, like the reason for the cut up thing is that it's a way of circumventing kind of like ruts that have been built in your brain. It's a way of like putting things together that wouldn't be together, or like breaking out of patterns.
It's really nice resistance against control.
And you know, like these algorithms are the exact opposite. It's about replicating with it as best as it can those patterns that you're trying to break out.
You know what I could talk about again?
What?
Deleuzian concept of war machine, of systems of escape versus systems of control, and how they like interact with each other in such a way where they'll like appropriate these techniques. So Burroughs employed cut-up method as a counter of control and kind of organize his thoughts in a way that like lend itself to like resistance of that control.
Mm-hmm. And like like then this thing comes back.
I was captured by this dang AI. That
is really interesting. Yeah, this kind of comes back to I'm gonna bring it back to the story, but or let me try to find the quote here. Because it's one of the apocalypses that one of these guys. First it's Mr. Seward, and then that was a funny moment. You can see Miss Blankship now, Mr. Tomlinson. In focusing my face, Thompson is the name. Oh yes, Mr. Thompson. If you'll just scare to step this way. Like the way like reality just sort of shifts. Like, okay, so you misread a name, and for a while that's the name. Let's see. Because he's saying like it's not a communist plot. It's in a way it's opposite.
I'm looking too.
Yeah, this sounds like it's such a random. What can you do for your own reflection, many times removed, of course? Or to put it another way, on the subject of wrongness, how wrong do you think you generally are? I don't believe I understand you, Mr. Bentley. In that case, I will make yourself clear. No, Mr. Capwell, this is not a communist plot. It is simply the mirror image of such a plot, many times removed, and apparent to you as such because you believe that it is.
Of course, it is a common measure of prophylaxis.
Prophylaxis,
thank you. To shoot a cow, the aftosa, and the reasonable cow would not object to this procedure if that cow had been indoctrinated with proper feelings of duty toward the bovine community at large.
Does that answer your question? Like, he just like jumps between all these things. Like all you're sure is that he wants something really violent to happen, and he thinks it's very urgent because something even more violent could happen. And the reason of it is because of this, I don't know, this funhouse, what do you call it? Feedback loop of retaliation.
Yeah.
That's how, like, the thing of like and now I'm realizing too, like, what he's talking about is one sneeze is inconsequential, whereas 1,000 consecutive sneezes might as well prove fatal. And then he's saying that it's not a communist plot, but the mirror image of the plot. And that is kind of, like, some details aside, that's the Fu Manchu thing.
It is.
Like, the CIA spread this thing afraid of Red China takeover, and they ended up sneezing themselves to death. But it's such an interesting thing to I mean, it's the book at its most, like, I'm just gonna throw out this imagery and these semiotically loaded phrases or words, and you do what you want with them.
It comes down to themselves,
right? And like the focus on images too, on images causing this thing. Like later, going back to the film thing, there's so many moments where a narrator describes himself as, I'm thinking of the scene where someone's got their butt on film.
Oh, is that the one where the cops go crazy seeing red?
Yeah, I think that's the one. Or it's like around there. If it's not that one, it's like really close.
It's a powerful one.
Yeah, that one is really that one also feels like if you were to like take like a curve and just extrapolate linearly from a single point. Like at some point, like that story is like these cops go crazy over a pornographic image, and they all just can't stop staring at it, and then all the cops in the world seemingly just like rush to it and crowd this house as they're bursting out.
Oh. There's a power to this imagery and what we're imagining out of them.
Yeah. Like I think you're saying there's a power to the image that they're looking at. Like the image has a power over them. But yeah, like the imagery painted in the book of these cops like becoming like water, like the zombies in World War Z. That is a really powerful imagery that really fits, like turning cops into like this de-individualized like mass of rage.
It works. It works so well to take that short story that, I don't know, in that direction that far.
Yeah, like there's so much great like cop stuff. Like I was gonna say like anti-cop stuff, but just in general, like just like looking at them like anthropologically, because like your average cop, like they're probably not living super comfortably. And yet they're like the main tool for the people that live the most comfortably.
Oh, what's the comparison? They're like dogs for the rich.
Yeah, I was gonna say like lumpen, like they're lumpen proletariat.
Was that word choice? Lumpin?
What is that? I forgot where I think that's from the 18th Brumaire. Like that's like the word like Marx uses for lower class people that aren't like in labor. They're not like proletarianized. Like they're, I guess like the like lumpen would be like the word for like riffraff or you know,
lacked awareness of their collective interest as an oppressed class.
Right. Like cops are a little different because they are kind of organized, right? They do have probably the most supported unions of any group of people, but it's a very exclusive union. It's just a sort of club that they belong to. Yeah, like the word lumpen, I guess, would be like a little bit more disorganized than that.
I see what you're going for, though.
Yeah, I'm sure like someone has, like, police and that term have existed side by side for a while now, so I'm sure someone has made that up.
Almost like what?
Has found a way to bring them together.
It's like a sellout, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Javert kind of personifies that.
Who? Sorry?
Javert from Les Miserables.
Javert. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The cop that came from, like, nothing and assumed we had, like, a criminal background, but, like, did not have that awareness to want to act for his fellow oppressed.
Right. He has no sense of morality. Like, I'll be honest. I'm talking exclusively about the musical. But yeah, he has no sense of like morality besides his duty. And that's based on like this kind of like image of himself as a cop. Like, I'll go back to like the image thing, like the seeing yourself, you know, as a film, as a kind of, if not protagonist of a film, like a valuable part in the story. Like, hope we can still go back to other stuff. I'm gonna talk like in. I love that on-set language used in the end, where the bartender is talking to the cop he doesn't like.
Yes. Yeah. How to take back ownership of what you have on set to kind of live in the here and now.
Right. Like, yeah, like living in the here and now is this thing that's like repulsive in some way, scary in some way, but also like the thing you need. And being on set, like being embedded in a story or, you know, a framing that, you know, you understand like in purely like movie terms, gives you that feeling.
It's a really powerful medium choice, these short stories, and delve into the concept of film with them.
Yeah, and it's I think it's really powerful that it's like it's the medium itself. Like, it's not like every one of these people is in one movie, but it feels like it's a bunch of movies like being projected at the same time.
Yeah. How many of you people can live without film coverage? How many of you can forget you were ever a cop or a priest, a writer, everything you ever thought and did and said behind and walked right out of the film? There's no place to go.
It's radical. That's radical. That's the film isn't there anymore, Clancy. The spring is gone from your sap. Strength sags from your good right arm. Cold and wood in your fingers. And on that phrase, what happened to your pigeons, Clancy? That came up earlier, I think, in the Purple Better one.
Yeah.
Because that's when, like, because he talks about like how cops are like this sort of like frustrated thing, and that's like the little moment of pathos. Like, I used to watch pigeons. Like, like there was a person in there once.
One time. What kept you doing it, Clancy? It was the feeling you were on set, knowing you had a part in the film. Film covered you just like the white stuff covers a junkie. No mind shaving and dressing. You didn't mind doing these things.
Oh, man.
So long as the film covered you while you were on the cops.
That's cutting. Like, it's like that's also like where I see like, okay, how could that be cut up? It's so coherent. It's such a razor sharp like observation.
I guess where it can be cut up, it is a razor sharp observation. Where it can be cut up is some of the formatting, the punctuation's a little off.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes that like makes you like, because sometimes I for the life of me I can't figure out the way to read it in my head. Like, it's not exactly like I read All the Pretty Horses a little while ago, and you know, Cormac McCarthy, like he'll only use periods. Like, he'll rarely use a comma.
But it sounds
but
really difficult. Go on, sorry.
Oh, yeah, and sometimes it is because he'll do like these run-on sentences, but you can find a way to read them out loud. In some ways, it's easier to read the book out loud. I mean, that's my small brain maybe, because it's written in a very conversational or sometimes biblical, but in this sort of sonorous way, where just like sort of the rhythm of the words, like the placement of subject and verb and all that, like you see like where the breaks are supposed to go. And yeah, it's like this feels a little bit more challenging in that respect.
It's hard to figure out, like, okay, where am I supposed to stress here? Where
Yeah.
am I pausing? Saying what?
So that might have come from, I don't know, like what this is later in his career. I'm not sure if he ever, when or if Burroughs ever kicked drugs. I'm not sure what his approach was to editing his works besides the famous cut up thing.
I think he got off at some point. His life is rather chaotic.
Oh yeah.
I'm not quite sure
Right.
where this work fell in that. But I think this was after he got off of heroin, I believe. Legend was an earlier work. It was 1959. This was 73.
Yeah, that's some distance. I don't know. Like, I don't know enough to like know where to take that line of inquiry. I was wondering just how automatic the process is. Like, how much is it like like I just gotta get this out, and how much is sort of considered, and like yeah, I think this comma should go here. I would believe for this book, I'll believe either end of it.
So I know with like his friend Kerouac, and Kerouac released On the Road rather quickly is like the
right. He famously wrote that like as one big scroll.
That's like the folktale behind it. Mind you, I do believe that he probably like walked around with a journal or like kind of journaled these events, like had notes.
That makes sense. That's the only way I can write anything is like sporadic, like fragments.
It's the moments of you're in the shower and it's like, oh, I have an idea all of a sudden. I gotta write that down before I forget.
Yeah, like how can that not be anyone like part of anyone's process, or I don't know, different people, different strokes. Maybe if you're the type of person, maybe meth really helps.
No, I hope not.
Yeah, cut this out of context. Meth helps.
Oh, I misheard you. They said math.
Oh, math. Oh no, no, math helps. Math helps.
I mean, meth might. Drinking might too. Apparently, it's just saying right drunk, Ed is sober.
Oh right, is that attributed to Hemingway?
Yeah.
I think in Spirit there's because you have to get things out.
What was I gonna say? Okay, to answer your question though, like for me, this feels pretty planned.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather.
Yeah, like the way things come back, the way the rhythms of everything.
There's
hits.
some advanced techniques involved in not only writing these short stories, but unifying them in such a way.
Right. Like, yeah, if someone could simply write this just like that, it just wouldn't be fair.
It wouldn't be fair. Yeah. No, he probably wrote this individual stories themselves pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. Yeah, no, not to take away from the spontaneity of like some of this stuff.
A ton of editing after that spontaneity happened. It's like, okay, I have to clean this up now. That's my take.
Yeah, that feels right to me. I think you're right. Plus, like, man, I really wish there was like, it's like one of those things where I miss college is like having like the free access to JSTOR.
Yeah, I do miss that access.
I'm trying to find a quote from the Purple Better one that I thought was like really powerful.
There's a lot of powerful ones there.
Yeah, like that when you said that bit that you read about like white stuff out of a junkie on a there's like that thing. I guess it's like obvious when he like calls money, where he compares money to junk. And that's an interesting thing. Like I don't know, like virus replicating outside of the body. Like it's that, or language being a virus, or like money like having its own logic. That's the kind of stuff that's like really scary. Is like these people in charge, they're not really in charge. They're addicts. They're following their own like their own whatever the stuff that they're slaves to.
Right.
And then it turns out actually it's aliens orchestrating it all, making everyone be on set like play these parts. It was actually Fu Manchu.
Sorry, Fu Manchu.
Yeah, there's like some really cool lines in that in the story. There's like, "We are real, 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 real as this nightstick."
What's happening in America today is something that has never happened before in recorded history. Total confrontation. Oh, I think I found it. In point 5,
Right.
the disappearing dollar. There's something wrong with the whole concept of money. It takes always more and more to buy less and less. Money is like junk. Those that fixes on Monday won't fix on Friday.
There was something too. Yeah, that's a great like little thing. It almost sounds like he's gonna like talk about just like inflation, but like he gets at like the deeper thing. I think in the confrontation part too. Oh yeah, right after that, the total confrontation. There's this beautiful thing. Like the lies are obvious. The machinery is laid bare. All Americans are being shoved by the dead weight of a broken control machine right in front of each other's faces.
Like it or not, they cannot choose but see and hear each other. How many Americans will survive a total confront?
But like that and that stuff too, where he imagines like Earth as a prison planet, or America's a prison nation where 30% of the population is in jail, and like they become like a big voting bloc. The broken control machine forcing everyone to like face each other. So it's like, what happens if like these fantasies break away? Like I don't know, like that. I feel like that applies so well to the current boomer meltdown that we're in right now.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot that felt not foreshadowing. That's not the word for telling.
Not oracular. No, I know exactly what word you're looking for. I'm pretty prophetic.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There was something about the purple one, or better purple one, that felt very prophetic to.
Yeah, like okay, a monkey running for president. How about a freaking Cheeto? Am I right? But you know,
like you said,
yeah,
the boomer meltdown that's going on right now, with all the film comparisons going on, and from being hooked on coverage. There's a lot of rhetoric
right,
around TikTok and its politics right now.
Yeah, right. It's not even fake news. Like the fake news thing, like we're all done with that. But this ability for like media to get us hooked on a narrative. But it's interesting how.
Sorry,
yeah, like,
can I pause you real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
On media getting hooked on the concept of going viral.
Oh shit! Yeah, William Burroughs. He was ahead of everything. He saw the.
All right, let's go viral. We got this.
I mean, I think there's something beyond like the pun. Like it's a great like virality is a great metaphor for how like ideas spread. And like I think what's interesting about that is that it's not just spread but mutate.
Yeah.
And they're unleashed by someone, but outside of that, it's out of their control. Like you speaking of control and unleashing things, so I don't mean to pimp you out, because we haven't talked about like the ultimate like control fantasy story in this, the discipline of DE.
Oh yes.
And I'll let you. You also said something about that story feeling like I don't know the word. I'm gonna get it wrong. Like at least like something like a sigil.
Yeah. Well, very grimoire, magical thinking type of thing. So yeah, let's cover that one.
Yeah. Just like speaking for, of course, everyone in the audience and not myself. Like, what is a sigil exactly? That's like a sort of like a collection of symbols that put to paper like have an inherent power or something.
Yeah. So I'll explain what a sigil is first, and we could do our little dive into the discipline of DE, or doing easy.
Yeah, what a breezy story. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it was good. It was a nice little break from the apocalyptic visions.
Yeah.
So a sigil is these pictorial or linguistic pieces that are arranged in such a way they tend to look very very appealing. There's a level of artistry involved, right? In how they're arranged. So you arrange that, ultimately expressing something you desire, right? And then you have to achieve a state of gnosis.
So gnosis, that's like Greek for knowledge?
Yeah. This like psychological peak, right?
Mm.
And
Okay.
you can achieve that in numerous different ways these days. It could be drug induced. It could be induced by orgasm. It's a very easy shortcut that people use.
The post-nut clarity.
Yes.
Okay.
Or that
Or being clear in Scientology.
that's not the state you want. It's the state right before that climax, right? That's like the state gnosis. So you achieve that, and then you burn the sigil, forget about it, and then sooner or later your desired currents will happen.
Okay. So it's like if you're in a psychologically heightened state, then interacting with certain symbols will like produce an effect in the world, or in your life. I'm trying not to like secularize it too much.
No,
but,
right. No, it's fine too. So that depends on your overarching theory of how you want to approach this, right? So it could affect your interaction with that symbol will affect the imagery and other symbols around you.
And it's meaningful, like what the symbol is. Like it's not just like you take anything, like the way that AA says like higher power, doesn't matter what the higher power is. So like something in medium is the message, but there's something meaningful about those symbols specifically in the way they're arranged.
To you or to your larger community, right? There has to be a sense of power in that arrangement.
And okay, so all right, and like I said, like we can talk about DE first and how this applies.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about doing easy. So it opens with retired Colonel Sutton Smith. He's retired at home.
Yeah, I'll say like it feels like the story isn't exactly like just focusing on him as a character. It feels like this is like a tape he mails out to people.
Yeah, or like a pamphlet, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine he's working on is either a tape or pamphlet, and he's going over his process of how he lives his life of doing easy. So the hardest part of the story is going over these techniques, right? Like how can you always and reliably throw that trash from behind your back into the waste bucket, and it's super methodical, right? Gotta clear the cardboard out of this space, or I gotta make sure this is out of the way. I gotta make sure I don't stub my toe against the this chair. If I do, then the chair is not where it's supposed to be for me doing easy.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like almost like how a Zen master will like focus on like the arrangement of a garden as a sort of conduit for general enlightenment. Like there's so much like emphasis put on just like working so hard to make these little things easy eventually in some way easy. Yeah, but this idea that if you like apply yourself to these tiny things that you normally don't think about, then suddenly everything else will fall into place. And like this description of things just coming out right, like that. I wish I should quote the book, but whatever. It's like you're all like the side of the pillow that you're on always is the exact right one, and like when you put your feet out of the bed, like your feet go perfectly and slide perfectly into the slippers in a way that just is satisfying. It's such a great description of like how you imagine your life going ideally. I don't know, like you think like I'm gonna go to the gym and then like yeah, I'm gonna turn my life around, go to the gym, and like on the way to the car you trip on your own shoelaces. Suddenly like your idea of what's perfect and like just the friction of existing suddenly brings you back to reality, and like this thing like promises like if you can do away with that friction, everything else will come
all fall into
easy.
place.
Yeah, but how does it start? Like it's like this pamphlet or whatever is trying to find a recipient. Like this relaxed knowledge of existence is just waiting to find a host. To go back to the viral language. Cold, dry, windy day, clouds blow into the sky, sunshine and shadow, dead leaf brushes my face. Red brick houses, trees, vacant lots, bright and windy, back in a cab through empty streets. When I reach the 4th floor, it looks completely unfamiliar, as if seen through someone else's eyes. I hope you find your way. Red brick houses, trees, the address and empty streets. And then it starts going off on Colonel Sutton Smith. Like, versus like this image of like desolation and emptiness.
Yeah.
And I hope you find your way. The address and empty streets. But, you know, between those lonely images is the discipline of DE.
Kernel issues, beginners, DE. DE is the way of doing.
Yeah.
It's the way of doing everything you do.
Yeah, I keep wanting to go back to Breezy. It's a very intoxicating read. You're like, yeah, I can do this. But it's like this this passage like has that quality. Like that could be a sigil too. Like this arrangement of words.
Yeah. This practice, this desire of having everything operate smoothly if you do all these little bits and pieces and interact with these things or images or objects in your life in such a way.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, like you say that you to interact with the sigils you have to first achieve a state of gnosis. But like it almost seems like that's the end goal of DE. Like what you want is just that state.
Maybe. Yeah, that state of elation of like, oh yes, everything's going so smooth. Yeah. Or maybe the state of gnosis in DE is that realization of that turnaround moment of, oh, right.
When it clicks. Yeah, and I hate to be meta. I'll delete this. When you're you know, but like these gestures, like these things that you practice over and over again. I guess if you're a dancer, every movement carries with it some kind of semiotic weight. But if you're a character in a story, then you know, everything about your existence is a collection of symbols.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a film, then at the end of the day you're just colors.
We're all just little atoms bouncing around.
Like what is anything but certain things in a certain order?
In a collection, in a collage.
Given a context.
You want me to be too universalist or generalized about everything?
Sure.
I guess interesting to kind of close out DE is that the Colonel starts talking about this opponent, right? The beginner can think of DE as a game. You're running an obstacle course, the obstacle set up by your opponent. As soon as you attempt to put DE into practice, you'll find that you have an opponent very clever and persistent and resourceful with detailed knowledge of your weaknesses and above all, expert in diverting your attention for the moment necessary to drop a plate on the kitchen floor.
Oh, I forgot about that detail.
Yeah, who or what is this opponent that makes you slip, drop, and fumble, slip, and fall? Grodick and Freud called it the IT, a built-in self-destructive mechanism. Mr. Hubbard calls it the reactive mind.
That's telling, because that falls into not just like any new age cosmologies, but you know, you could even go back to ancient religions. Like when I was talking about like the friction of daily living, I forgot about this like framing But that's kind of rich because essentially the colonel is like a military figure, so of course like he'd be thinking about the adversary, like what can we do, and it's this thing that's like, as long as this adversary is there, then your control will be contested.
Right, you'll never be doing it easy if you have that adversary.
You have to, yeah, you have to work hard to keep things easy. A little pun with gnosis, like the Gnostics, right? They have like the idea of the demiurge, of reality itself being this kind of evil thing.
This mirrored image.
Yeah. Right, but there's also like a nice way to sell something too. Like that way, like it's not just like your own fault, but it's other thing you can attribute things to. It's Dr. Fu Manchu or Doctor, whatever, give him a doctor now. Did you watch Donnie Darko?
Yeah, I did years ago.
Do you remember that teacher that got really into, I think it was Patrick Swayze's like self-help tapes?
Oh, vaguely.
It was like a new age thing, but he was like, he had a cosmology that there was like the light and the dark, and it's like, and she was like, "Oh, can you put this into the light or into the dark?"
It's funny that Harvard was name dropped into this. It corrects me.
Harvard. That means it's legit.
Right? Yeah. With the $5,000 e-meters. Yeah, that's right. I looked up how much the e-meter cost. I was very curious after reading this, and it's like, oh nope.
And I found out too. You got me reading about that. I was looking at Reddit. Apparently, nowadays, if you want to buy a new e-meter, usually you're buying it because someone is selling stuff they shouldn't be. Like they pinched it from Scientology. But it's good for up to a year because now it's built in with like firmware updates, so it'll like freeze on you if it's not connected to their servers. If Scientology's IT department doesn't.
Excuse me, what? For real?
Yeah. They'll break your e-meter if it didn't stay in the family.
Wow, that really brought me down.
I know you wanted to perform a self-auditing. I know you wanted to become clear.
To upstat or whatever.
Yeah, to upstat. That's so fun. Like, he really comes to Scientology. I forget that it comes up like more than once in this book.
He has some issues with them.
Like when they come up, like he talks about Sea Org being a bunch of like ineffectual, like useless people. He makes a Scientologist guy look like the most like pathetic worm, but also like the stuff that's appealing. Like he's feeling bad for being unconfident, so he's like, I have to find a way to upstat myself. So when he finds trouble, he's like elated, and he remembers the L. Ron Hubbard thing about just be there when you need to be or something. It's interesting that the sense of confidence is like the thing like what I was saying before, like the gnosis is the thing that you in this DE thing isn't the thing that you wield to achieve a purpose, but it is the end goal in the DE thing, at least. Like it's not like to like whatever, you don't like burn the sigil and forget about it. You like stay in this like holding the sigil like frenzy.
I would hope to a certain point of doing easy theoretically that it would become so easy that you forget the process.
Right, ideally, and then you can do what you want, become president of France, whatever.
Any language you've ever heard before, you know it.
That's right, and like all these languages, they're actually just there's a bass rhythm, and you can learn it if you just. There's actually a thesis about this. So funny. Again, it's like not any curiosity about the specific language, but about the fantasy of being able to master it all at the same time.
That's where I started to read very grimoire esque.
It's just a hidden song beneath our supposed knowledge.
A lot of those medieval manuscripts came up with a lot of like crazy promises if you master this process or use these magic squares, like you generate gold out of air or have the ability to fly.
Yeah, we all just want like ways to. I have a book about like witchcraft in like colonial in New Spain, whatever, like in Latin America, what we now call Latin America, about like witchcraft in colonial Guatemala. And there's a story about a woman going to the local witch, like a Christian woman going to the local witch, and the witch being like, okay, this man will fall in love with you if you take your pee and splash it around his house.
Did it work?
No, she was arrested.
Oh. Aren't?
But you can imagine the state that she was in to be like, oh, I gotta try that. I tried everything.
To mark my territory?
I guess that was the... Yeah, there is something, there's something that tracks, like, metaphorically. If not, in causal reality, then at least in the world of dreams.
I don't know, there's pheromones or whatever.
Pheromone, yeah. Maybe it would have worked if you didn't get caught.
That's like a fascinating book. That sounds like a really cool read.
Yeah, it's called Women Who Live Evil Lives. It's pretty good.
The title leaves a bit to be desired, but
yeah, I think like it's because in Spain they call those women like mujeres de mal vivir. I guess like mal vivir is like bad living, but like I guess like that can have like, maybe at the time it had a more dark connotation. So women who live evil lives is the title. But anyway, I think we touched on a lot of the cool things. Like this is such a cool book that. Like in a cut up way of like you don't know what meaning or aesthetic effect will come from putting two things together you wouldn't expect. I feel like with this book, I you could put any story next to any other story, and some urge it more than others, like some invite comparison. But like just talking about any story, like we just drop references to any of the other ones. Like there's such a cool gestalt that forms out of like all these separate things. Like this is gonna be like a beach read for me for
beach read. Yeah. Oh,
like if I go on a trip, I can't think of starting a new book. Like I might want to revisit this.
Yeah, maybe change the order of things, or it's definitely something you can read in just any order. Just pick up. Start in the middle of things. Yeah,
there is a run that I really enjoyed where it like each story would start with the last phrase at the end of the story before.
Yeah.
Like at the return of the astronauts return starts with "There is no face in the tarnished mirror," and then the next story is "My face." And that's a cool story too. That felt like that could have been a story, that could have been something out of King in Yellow or something.
These do fit in the general vibe of like King in Yellow though, for sure.
Yeah. The weird like apocalyptic thing too. Like the way King in Yellow has like this like other world, like this sort of like semi-dictatorship version of America that's at war with Germany.
The Emperor of America.
Yeah. There's that's a book that kind of broke reality for its own purposes. But yeah, no, like we could keep talking about it. I think like is there anything else you want to talk about with Exterminator before we close out?
I think we hit the big unifying stories. I don't necessarily have a favorite story, so I'm not sure if I'll ask you yours.
I mean, there's very few. Some of these, like, I don't know if they work completely standalone. Like, some they just feel like fragments of this
larger thing going on.
Yeah, like I'm like looking through a peephole at a world where everything has gone wrong. For a standalone story, we didn't get to talk about it because it doesn't really connect to much of the rest of the story of the book. I mean, but what's it called? The one with the Phantom Hit.
Which one?
The Immaculate Hit. The one.
Immaculate Hit.
That little Christmas story.
Oh, the priest they called him. Yeah.
Yeah. That felt like immediately, it creates a world. It has this character, this sort of like we don't have that so much. I kind of don't have that so much anymore. This sort of guy at the edges of society that everyone kind of knows, like in the neighborhood, and they call him the priest. He's just like a morphine addict who's like trying to get by for Christmas. He's having a hard time. He gets a little bit from the doctor. He goes before he gets to do it. When he goes home, someone else is like in pain. Oh, but this story does come back because that phrase "my leg, señor," comes back later.
The story afterwards. It feels like a direct continuation. Yeah. It is. Gotta be.
Yeah, so I guess we could talk about this book for hours. I really like this book. But later he's got like pain, so he gives him the last of his morphine, and he's like, I guess Christmas will have to be sober. And then suddenly he feels it. It washes over him. It's the immaculate hit. What a Christmas miracle. He gets to be high after all.
I think that is him dying, right?
Oh, is that how... I thought I read that completely as a happy story. Yeah, maybe he's ODing.
Just old age finally got him.
Oh, and that's the immaculate fix. Oh, I guess since he himself was a priest, there was no need to call one. I guess I was just thinking about like the holy nature of this, the universe granting him this favor.
It ended happily though. I don't know. He did get his
live or die. I'm sure that's how you'd want to go. If you're in the priest position.
Right. It's a clever word. Voices though, immaculate hit.
That feels like something that people. Like a sort of like folk legend that addicts might have told each other in the 60s. Like I heard that sometimes it'll just come to you.
Did you hear about the priest?
You ever heard the immaculate hit, man?
The priest got it. We can too.
The priest got it, man. Like maybe in telling the story, and then he died. Like, how would you know? Then it's like, no, that's just the story. That's what I heard, man.
Shit, man! Don't ask me details like that.
Guys, come on, just let him believe. This.
I've seen little misadventures with the priest.
Yeah, he could be I wouldn't mind if he was a recurring character.
You ever seen the movie Drugstore Cowboy?
Oh, I love that movie.
I think Burroughs himself kind of acted as the priest in the park scenes.
Yeah, I remember him. Man, that's like a haunting. Like he looked so I guess he was old, but he looked so deflated in that movie. It's like the priest, after he cleaned up and what's left of his life.
Yeah.
I gotta see that movie again. It's been years.
It was so good.
But he does you believe it if it's Burroughs. You do believe that this is someone who's lived life by the sword, so to speak.
Yeah. Fugitive in Algiers and it is
right. Mexico. Where there's all the places he lived?
New York. New Orleans. He lived in New Orleans for a while. Some of these pictures of him, he's him as the old guy.
But I guess at the when we were imagining Exterminator, he would have been in his 50s, early 50s. Right. So I guess you need to imagine a more. I can't imagine him not being skinny like that, but the life he lived that's the mileage.
Yeah, right.
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
Whenever I think of him, I always think of him as that why is there older grandpa figure.
I gotta check out more of his stuff. I remember I tried some of Naked Lunch in high school. We've talked about it before. There's one story that kind of stuck with me, but I didn't get the angle. But I'm coming out of Exterminator, finding his intelligence, his humor, his imagination to be just really captivating.
Yeah, I should pick up Nova Express again. I had a copy of that, and it was a hair more tame than Naked Lunch, but it was still cut up. We should in the future have more pleasant evenings with Burroughs, but
yeah, for sure.
For the sake of variety, I don't see the point in going back to back.
Right. In fact, we're gonna make a big leap. We're actually gonna, in a sense, go back to high school vibes Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh yeah.
So we look forward to that. Yeah, I'm just transitioning into signing out. We gotta wrap up. This is
Taking a while. No, for
we're
sure.
at 2 hours
for sure.
now.
I think we covered a lot of good ground. So
Right. So join us next time for if you've been following along with the Gundam releases. Just next time for the conclusion to Double Zeta Gundam.
we got some Gundam movies ahead of us, I think.
Yeah, and then right after that it's gonna be Char's counterattack.
Finally, Charmix has come back.
Yeah, really excited about wrapping up Zeta Gundam. It has been I really have been enjoying that one. If you're not into Gundam, I guess that's a hard one to jump into. Just watch Gundam. It's whatever. It's fun or not. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Join us in the future. If after we do Double Zeta Gundam, we'll probably hit up Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh yeah.
Throughout all those times, we're gonna try to have as many pleasant evenings as we can.
We hope the same for you.
Oh, that's right. This is I'm Roberto signing out.
This is Corbin saying good night.
I missed my timing. I was gonna try to pull up some disgusting phrase from this book, but as always, come and jerk off. 1929. All right.
For shitting and pissing.